Israel has begun what its defense minister calls a full siege of the Gaza Strip in reaction to this weekend's attack by Hamas. At least 1,200 people have been killed in the violence. And joining us right now is someone who has covered the Middle East for a very long time, New York Times foreign affairs columnist Tom Friedman. Tom, obviously, this is a huge shock. What are the broader implications to what this means? What have you heard?
Well, in terms of your viewers, Becky, there's a real potential here for a much wider conflict. As horrific is this Hamas attack on Israel and now going to be, I'm sure, a major Israeli operation in Gaza. I think the long-term danger is that it is discovered, of which there are a lot of indications, that this was, in a sense, a combined operation by Iran and Hamas in order to stop in its tracks the budding normalization between Saudi Arabia and Israel and the strengthening of the Palestinian Authority, the competitive Palestinian power center to Hamas that rules the West Bank. And so as that becomes more apparent, that is going to be a huge source of tension where that goes between Israel and Iran. And the great fear is that Iran's proxy in Lebanon, Hezbollah, will open a second front in northern Israel by rocketing northern Israel. And if that happens, it's Katie bar the door.
I mean, that's why the U.S. is sending warships to the Mediterranean to be there to try and keep something like that from happening. But if it is confirmed that Iran was the one that backed this, that planned this, that put this together, which it certainly appears to be the case, how does Israel not retaliate? And if they do retaliate, what's the fallout?
Well, Israel and Iran have been fighting, Becky, a proxy war in Syria and Lebanon now for the last 15 years at least. Israel in the previous government pioneered a new approach to Iran, and that was to tell the Iranians that don't think just because you're not on our border that we aren't going to find you and track you down. And Israel actually began a process of targeted assassinations of senior Iranian intelligence and defense people every time there was an attack by Iran's proxies on Israel. So I think you could easily see that. You could see other things. I don't know. This is kind of uncharted territory. But from an Israeli point of view, they've got to do one thing at a time right now, and that is take on Hamas in Gaza, figure out what to do there.
If the goal of this was to try and shut down a further relationship between Saudi Arabia and Israel, what's the Saudis' response to this?
It's a really good question. Their initial response was to issue a statement very sympathetic to the Palestinians and in a way hostile to Israel. I wouldn't take that as their long-term view. They're not going to jump into this war on the side of Israel, but they're certainly not going to jump in on the side of Hamas either. I think the Saudis have to figure it out. What I've been saying to Israeli contacts is that when an event like this happens, Becky, the first question I think you have to ask yourself as a country is, what does my enemy want? And now let's do just the opposite. So I know what Iran and Hamas want. They want Israel to invade Gaza and get completely bogged down in house-to-house fighting there, which will have its own horrific costs to civilians there and kind of equal the moral balance somehow, for Hamas. That's what they want. And that will radicalize the whole Arab Muslim world. I think the real challenge for Israel is how does it deter Hamas? How does it respond to this attack without falling into the quagmire of Gaza? And at the same time, actually quickening the pace of negotiations on normalization between Israel and Saudi Arabia, paired with progress between Israel and the Palestinian Authority that governs, the much more moderate Palestinian Authority that governs the West Bank. I hope that will be the long-term dynamic because I think it's so important for Israel right now to ask itself, what does my enemy want? Let's do exactly the opposite.
Tom, can you speak to the relation between the United States and Israel in the following context? We've had a raging debate in Washington and throughout the country about whether to support Ukraine, how much money to send to Ukraine. I imagine there's going to be asks for money for Israel. We're at a time where we don't have a Speaker of the House, and there's questions about whether the government here is going to be shut down. How do you think all of that plays?
Well, Andrew, it's a really serious problem, as I flagged in my column over the weekend, which is that Jake Sullivan, the National Security Advisor, spends a good part of every day scrounging up weaponry to support Ukraine. I mean, we're talking about things as simple as 155 shells, for its artillery, and Patriot missiles, anti-aircraft missiles, which the Ukrainians need desperately. I quoted in my column, Vladimir Putin as licking his chops and saying, if the flow of Western weapons to Ukraine is cut off for a week, they're finished. He's just gonna have free reign of the skies. And so, can I just say to every one of the Republican lawmakers talking about just cutting off military aid to Ukraine, that is one of the most shameful, embarrassing, disgusting things I can imagine an American government doing in the history of our country. What the hell is wrong with you people? We have aided these people in defending their country for a year plus, and you're just going to say, "Oh, that's too bad, not working. Going to cut them off." I can't imagine what the implications of that would be for our relationships with our allies from Taiwan to NATO. It is incomprehensible to me. It is incredibly shameful that anyone would even contemplate that.
And so how do you relate that back to Israel? Because one of the other things that I imagine that's going to be the next piece of this.
Well, Israel actually hosts the biggest stockpile of U.S. weapons pre-positioned abroad of any country, I believe, in the world. So Israel will no doubt, as this war goes on, have to dig into that stockpile. The United States had already come to Israel and asked it to send Hawk missiles. These are old anti-aircraft missiles to Ukraine. Israel refused because of an eventuality like we have today. They felt they had to keep them in reserve. So this dynamic between Israel, Ukraine, and the West, the United States, and NATO is going to come into play here, and Putin is watching very closely.
Tom, you said before that your message to this audience would be what? What do you think this audience can and should be doing?
This is now we're in this moment, Becky, in this story where it's going to be about raw power against raw power. I was talking to friends in Israel this morning, and the mood there oscillates between utter rage at what was done, seeing people's bodies dragged through the streets in Gaza, and real despair. This was a complete breakdown of Israel's deterrence and intelligence capabilities. It's just shocking to people. And so, to me, what I try to do in my column is always think about, I always say in the Middle East, real politics happens not the morning after, but the morning after the morning after. And so whatever Israel's going to do in Gaza to Hamas, the fundamentally important question, Becky, is who can rule Gaza, if not Hamas? Now, let's remember, the only possibility, Hamas threw out in 2007 the moderate Palestinian Authority that governs the West Bank. Netanyahu has spent the last 15 years trying to weaken, delegitimize, and undermine that Palestinian Authority. So now the only natural alternative to Hamas is that Palestinian Authority. So you're going to see a real clash between those two policies.